Hey guys, how you doing? This is Catching Up with KJ, episode number 78. And are you in the mood to talk about monsters? I am. Monsters anyway. And I'm talking about real monsters here. I know some people may think we're going to talk about, like narcissists or, serial killers or something like that. But no, no, we're going to talk about monsters, like real monsters. Got a lot of stories I want to share with you here. What I do with my videos and the way I've done research for years, because I've been doing this stuff for years, is I keep multiple folders on my computer just filled with stories that are interesting to me. And I do this every day. And I look through all kinds of sources. I mean, from, everything from weird government run operation, false flag type operations, attacks, UFOs, to fallen angels, to dog people, wolf people, everything. Kind of like the X-Files, I guess. Growing up, I loved the X-Files. Little kid, I was fascinated with the supernatural and paranormal. I had a few weird experiences as a kid, like a little kid, but I always attribute that more to like God type stuff, I guess you could say. But it opened up my eyes at a really early age that there's a lot more going on out there than what we're told. Excuse me. So I've always been interested in these kinds of subjects. When I was 8 years old, and my mom still has these stories at the house, I wrote my first two stories. I was first grade. And one was called The Devil and the Woodcutter, and the other one was called The Strange Secret. And it had to do with, the devil trying to steal the woodcutter's baby was one, and the other one was about a UFO uh, killing a child. I was 8 years old. Yeah, my parents were a little worried about me from an early age, but you can see how all that turned out, you know. By the way, I got to mention I've got a really naughty cat. Give me a second. I think I may have to put him in timeout. Quit it. His name's Chubbs. I also call him Rowdy, but I guess he's more like a dog than anything. I mean, he's really bold. He'll come right at you. He's not scared at all. And he gets in these kind of fits, every now and then, where he just likes to run around and get into stuff he's not supposed to. And then he'll turn around and look at me like, come at me. So this is what he does. You may hear him running around back there in the back right now. So, we're just going to chill out today, man. I've got some cool stories that I've kept in my folders for a long time. Most of these are current, like within the last year. Interesting monster type stories. So I'm just going to take my time today. I'm going to share these stories with you. I'll be checking out the chat here and there and saying hi. We're going to take our time, man, and just relax. One of the reasons I'm doing this today, first off, like I said, I'm really interested in the subject. I've had some people write and ask if I'll ever do a show about this. And I've talked about this stuff in past catching up shows, but it's been a while. There's a lot going on in the world right now. These are crazy times. We know what just happened in Sin City. Opinion on that. I did a short video, and I'm going to put it up on my website because there's footage on there that YouTube, I didn't find this anywhere but Live Leak. It's a Live Leak. That's a website. And it's apparently an EMT, and he's running around right after all the shots were fired. And it's the most graphic video I've seen from the whole event. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to debate whether or not, what's real, what's this, what's that. There's obviously a narrative at place right here, or in place. So my video is just covering in basic the symbolism of it that's obvious to me. And then at the end, I'm adding this other video that's really graphic. So the warning, before you watch this, as soon as my show's done here and this catching up show's uploaded to YouTube, within an hour, I'll have that video posted on my website. I'll leave a link below. So by the time most of you are watching this on YouTube or listening, you'll see the link and you can go check out the video. Like I said, it's got my symbolic view of what happened in short, and then it shows this footage that I've seen nowhere else. It's only on Live Leak. There's no way YouTube would take it. There's no way. It's really graphic, and I just felt it was important to put that out there so people can see the aftermath of this and how serious this stuff was. Although, again, some people are going to say it was all made up, and I'm not here to debate all that. I felt it was important to put this information in there. There's that. And when these events come out, they're always incredibly divisive, and I feel that's what a lot of this is. There's multiple psyops taking place here, but that's one of them. It's very divisive. It's also traumatizing, whether or not it was made up or not or whatever. I mean, it's still traumatizing, and that's why I can't watch the news for long periods of time, because it's trauma. It's traumatizing. I'll watch clips of news on YouTube for stories and see what's going on in the world and whatnot, but to sit there and watch a couple hours of any news channel, no can do. Most of it's lies anyway. There's a narrative at place there, so there's just no point. Anyway, I see that happening a lot. I see a lot of people getting really crazy over what just happened, fighting, bickering back and forth. The whole situation's a bummer, to say the least. But when I see that stuff playing out, it makes me want to take a hard right turn and do something completely different. This is a subject that we can enjoy. We can talk about this. We can explore some of these ideas of these monsters, if you like, in the chat. And we can get away from this narrative playing out before us right now, and all the other worldly stuff as well. I have other shows coming up where I'll talk more about, faith, Christ, what time it is, and I put most of that in everything I do anyway, as far as videos go. So, that time will come, and it is incredibly important. It's the most important thing to me. I'll just quickly add: if you don't have Jesus Christ in your life, if you don't have a connection with God, please do. Very soon. That's the whole reason I've done everything I've done for so many years, is hopefully to show you what time it is. And, I'm a Christ believer. I'm a Christ follower. And I know not everybody is. And fair enough. I reach a wide range of an audience. I just wanted to add that in there, real quick, because it's crazy what's happening. And we'll be keeping our eyes on it. So let's get back to monsters, though. As a kid, I was fascinated with monsters. I used to have tons of monster toys, even. And growing up, on Saturday afternoons, they used to play the old black and white movies from like the 50s of all the classic Universal monsters and other monsters, and a lot of UFO alien type movies. And I just loved that stuff as a kid. Loved it. And loved monsters. And I remember I was about 13, and that's when, the age you start getting out of the childish stuff and you start kind of growing up a little bit. And my mom had a big garage sale, and it was time to let go of the monsters. And I was ready to do it. I got a skateboard at that time, and I was ready to kind of move on. But I never lost my interest in the supernatural and paranormal. And I think it's pretty obvious by now. I have sections on my YouTube channel that are set up for that. So I've got some really cool stories I want to share with you. Now, before I do, let me jump over here to chat. I already see Castleberry in the house. Timmy, good to see you, man. Let's chat soon. Hi, James. Elliot, thanks for being here. Jesus Saves is here. Demonic Eva, Rutro, she's here. Amy J, how you doing? Good to see everybody. Twitwit. Twitwit. It's always nice to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. And being a great mod along with Timmy as well and the others. Lovely Amelia. It feels like it's been a while since I've seen you. Good to see you. Mr. T. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Fallen Angels he brings up. Again, I cover that a lot as well. Jadester, great to see you. Amber Davis is here. Awesome. Ash, nice to see you. V-Town, what's up? Indecent Exposure. It's going fast now. If I missed your name, I'm sorry. I try to shout out when I can. Good to see everyone, man. I hope you guys are doing good this afternoon, man. I hope you're some of you may be working. If you are, then it's I'm glad you're able to listen. The anti-NWO Canada, good to see you. Thank you. Jenny Bean, an Interpol specialist. Ruh-roh. I hope you're really not one of those, but nice to see you. Niav, Ryan, of course. Let's see. I see this going pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and get into the stories here in a little bit, and then I'll keep bouncing back and forth to the chat. And like I said, we're going to take our time, man. It's going to be a lazy afternoon. I've got no time limit on this, you know. I just want to take a little time. I felt like doing a show on this. Like I said, just something, um, you know, an interesting subject, an unusual subject, something out there. This horrible crap that's happening in the world right now, all over the place. Something interesting, something fun. I hope you enjoy it. So let's see here. Elizabeth M., hi. All right, so let me go ahead and jump over here to the first story. And these, I've got like a ton of tabs open up on my computer, so it may take a second to get these things rolling in between each one and take our time. Sources for these. I mean, sometimes it's thesun.com, which is a UK online paper. Daily Mail I've used in the past, but the most part today, these are going to be from mysteriousuniverse.org and phantomsandmonsters.com. That's where I get most of these today. I'm going to start with this one right here. The title of this story is called Beyond Strange, Incredibly Weird, Far Out, and Ridiculous Cryptids. These are things I collect. I'm a collector of weird news. I'm a collector of all kinds of things when it comes to news and all kinds of subjects, and this is how I make my videos. So I'm sharing with you some of my monster files today. I'm going to pause for a second and grab a drink of coffee real quick. Hold on. All right, that's better. I'm drinking some really strong coffee. Strong coffee plus a cat that's having a fit. This could be interesting. Right now, he's chilling out and he's watching me carefully. Hopefully, he doesn't act up. Hopefully, I don't have to yell at him too much while we're doing the show, but we'll see how it plays out. Incredibly weird, far out, and ridiculous cryptids. The world of cryptozoology, that of the strange, unidentified, or undiscovered creatures, has various shades of weirdness. Some of these alleged creatures seem as if they could possibly be flesh and blood creatures lying outside of our own classifications, removed from the more conventional possible explanations, and still others shoot way off into a totally new realm of the odd. Really outlandish, we find a menagerie of eyebrow-raising beasts that have propelled themselves far beyond what is easily explainable by any standard. There's so many such cases that it's hard to even know where to begin. I suppose when it comes to truly weird mystery monsters, a good place to start with is what can only be described as some sort of underwater lizard man, which is said to have terrorized the waterways of the state of Indiana. So if anybody out there is listening from Indiana and you've heard about this, let us know in the chat, please. So what's gone on to be known as simply the green-clawed beast is known primarily from one particularly dramatic and frightening witness report in 1955. On August 21st, 1955, Darwin Jones and her friend, or Miss Darwin Jones and her friend, Miss Chris Lamble, were swimming on the Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. Now, these are stories that made it into the paper at the time, so you find a lot of them from the 50s and 60s and 70s, too. On a clear and calm summer's day when they encountered something rather bizarre, to say the very least. During their relaxing swim, Johnson purportedly suddenly had difficulty swimming and began thrashing about in a panic in the water, as if something was intentionally and inexorably, did I say that right? Pulling her down. Lamble looked on in horror as her friend clutched at the water and grasped for air. And Johnson apparently once managed to break free from whatever was yanking on her leg, which would later be described as a scaly, clawed hand. Yet again, as she desperately screamed for help, Lamble furiously splashed her way across the water in her inner tube in an effort to reach her terrified, drowning friend as she approached the mysterious assailant, and then released its grip and sank away in the murky depths of the river. Once on shore, Johnson displayed gashes and bruises on her leg consistent with powerful claws, as well as a green palm print of a massive hand etched upon her flesh, which could apparently not be washed off for several days. While neither of these women had gotten a good look at the vicious mystery beast, they both seemed to agree that it had been a very large fish-like humanoid of some sort, very much like the beast, the creature from the Black Lagoon. As weird as all this is, it would all get even stranger still when investigator Terry Colvin interviewed the women years later for the paper and found out that they had been visited soon after the incident by a mysterious individual identifying himself as an Air Force colonel who had questioned them and then advised them against talking about it with anybody else. So just what was it that tried to drag Johnson down to her death? And why was that colonel snooping around and telling them to remain quiet? Strong similarity to another such purported fish-like or reptilian semi-aquatic humanoid monster sighted in Thetis Lake in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Tell this monster into the public consciousness is from August of 1972 when 16-year-old Robert Flellen and his friend 17-year-old Gordon Pike claimed that they had seen a surge of water out on the lake, after which an incredibly bizarre creature emerged, which was described as a being around 5 feet tall and covered with scales, with webbed fingers, a fish-like mouth, bulbous eyes, and several wicked-looking barbed fins protruding from its body and connected to a thin membrane. The boys claimed that the creature had fearlessly lurched towards them to attack, and that one of them had even been slashed on his hand by one of the thing's spiny fins in his effort to get away. Mounted police launched a brief investigation into the spooky incident, but were unable to find anything useful. 4 days later, two other boys, 14-year-old Russell Nice and 12-year-old Mike Gold, also claimed to have been menaced by seemingly the same creature. They said, "It came out of the water and looked around. Then it went back into the water. Then we ran. Its body was silver-looking and shaped like an ordinary body, like a human body, but it had a monster face, and it was all scaly with a point sticking out of its head and great big ears and scary eyes." Sighting of the so-called Thetis Lake monster allegedly occurred in 2006 when a man named Jesse Martin claims he was at the lake getting into his car to leave when a humanoid figure dashed out of the darkness to smash right into the side of his vehicle. The spooked witness then drove away as fast as he could and says that when he got home, he found a set of 5 nasty claw marks on the side of his car, as well as what appeared to be fish-like scales. Of some of the creatures of lore, some North American native peoples, such as the fish-like humanoid beast told of by the Quatalui Indians, which they refer to as puquis. Behind some of these actual cases, with perhaps some nugget of truth buried within, is this some sort of unidentified animal, alien, or are these just tall tales? No one really knows, but reptilian fishmen certainly rank up there with the stranger and more inexplicable of alleged mystery monsters. Another type of bizarre humanoid monster that seems to pop up in various locations throughout the U.S. is some sort of half-human, half-goat hybrid abomination, purportedly standing up to 7 feet tall and called the Goatman. The Goatman, I've covered the Goatman and the Lizard Man over on my website. I put a lot of those type of videos up over there, but the Goatman's an interesting one too. They've even had news stories on the Goatman out there. One iteration of this perplexing monster is the Goatman of Prince George's County, Maryland, which is said to be a humanoid goat that runs around attacking the unwary with an axe. The origins of this supposed monster are certainly steeped in urban legend, with one of the tales claiming the creature is once a mad scientist whose experiments backfired on him and mutated. One paranormal investigator named Mark Opasnik, author of the book The Real Story Behind the Exorcist, a study of the haunted boy and other true-life horror legends from around the nation's capital, has said of the Maryland Goatman's origins that there were basically 3 aspects to the Goatman legend as described by early newspaper accounts. Number 1 is that they described a creature that was half man, half animal walking on 2 feet. It was a mad scientist of some sort, a scientist who had worked in the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center who'd been experimenting on goats, and the experiment went astray, and he started attacking cars with an axe. He'd attack anyone who would roam the backwoods, the back roads of the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. And the third aspect of the legend was that it was just an old hermit who retreated to the woods and would be seen walking alone at night around Fletchertown Road, and when anyone would come around, he'd just run away. So despite the campfire story style and almost comic bookish origin tale, who have claimed to have actually seen the Maryland Goatman or even been attacked by it, claiming that the creature is much more than just a simple urban legend. Also with its own version of the Goatman tale is Poplick Creek in Louisville, Kentucky, which allegedly has a twisted, horned, half-goat humanoid beast that stalks the railway there. From an escaped circus freak to a mutated goat to a ghost, a demon, or even the devil himself, the Popelic monster is said to use various powers to lure people to their deaths, such as mimicking voices to bring people to the train trestle, where they are hit by the many heavy freight trains that come barreling through, or instead just resorting to attacking with an axe, much like its Maryland cousin. The Popelic Railway trestle, a popular place to go for thrill seekers and monster hunters, and whether there's really a monster or not there, still been a fair amount of deaths at that location due to these foolhardy souls actually being hit by trains following this legend. Not to be outdone is yet another goat-like type monster reported from Lake Worth, Texas, which is described as looking like a half-man, half-goat with fur, scales, and long-clawed fingers. The creature is said to be equally adept at swimming and climbing trees, and it will kill and eat fish, chickens, and pretty much whatever it can catch. The sightings that really set off the phenomenon were made in the summer of 1969 when a group of 3 couples were parked along the shoreline of Lake Worth near Greer Island in Tarrant County. According to witnesses, they were startled when, at around midnight, the beast crashed down onto one of the cars from the trees above and lashed out to attack, purportedly grabbing at one young woman before they were able to drive off to safety. One of the witnesses claimed that his car had an 18-inch long gash in it made by this thing's claws, which was shown to the authorities. And this was enough to cause the police to actually investigate this case, but no useful evidence was ever found besides the damage to the car. Nevertheless, the story took off with front-page headlines such as "Fishy Man-Goat Terrifies Couple's Parked Car at Lake Worth." And not long after there were other reports of the creature terrorizing visitors to the area of Greer Island, screaming in the night, in some instances claimed to be hurling car tires huge distances. Before long, the whole area was caught up in monster fever, and armed hunters and amateur monster hunters were pouring into the area to try and capture or kill this beast. It was during this alarming frenzy that in October of 1969, a man named Alan Plaster allegedly took a picture of the creature, which is fuzzy and inconclusive, yet still serves as the only known photographic evidence from back then of what it actually is. So whether it was even real or not, the Lake Worth monster has spawned an annual festival called the Lake Worth Monster Bash, which is held every October. So there have been theories as to what the Lake Worth monster could possibly be. Of course, for some it's more or less a Bigfoot roaming the region or some other similar bipedal primate. For others, this is all urban legend and campfire stories. Others still think this is all the result of people playing pranks, which then caught on in the media firestorm and fueled mass hysteria and copycats, which is reflected in the fact that as soon as summer wound down and kids headed back to school, these reports more or less started to dry up. Whatever the case may be, it's certainly another curious case, and one wonders, what is with all the Goatman type stories flying around all over the place? And if a Goatman isn't weird enough, then how about an actual Batman? From the wilderness of Mount St. Helens in Washington State in the United States comes a truly bizarre beast that is most often referred to as the Bat Squatch. The creature was supposedly first reported in 1980 and was described as a winged humanoid of some sort with purple skin, glowing red eyes, and an ape-like face. The creature is often blamed for mysteriously savaged dead animals apparently found scattered about the region, and the most famous report was in 1994 when witness Butch Whitaker claims to have seen the creature ominously flying up over the mountain. Many online sources claim that Whitaker took photos of this monster, but these seem to be evasive to find. Another sighting from 2009 was made by a witness who saw a similar creature at Mount Shasta, California, and he described the incident like this. Me and my friend were hiking around Mount Shasta, and in and out of one of those crevices, flew out of, these people don't know how to write. So, me and my friend were hiking around Mount Shasta, and out of one of these crevices flew a big creature. I mean, this thing was huge. It was as tall as a man, as stocky as Hulk Hogan, and had leathery wings. I believe the wingspan was at least 50 feet from one end to the other. I was holding up my camera, but was paralyzed with fear as this thing flew by. I didn't get a picture. I'm sorry about that. What do you think this might be? Could it have been a pterodactyl or something? It was like a flying or a gliding beast. It seemed to have a head of a bat. I mean, thinking about it, it doesn't have the head of a pterodactyl. I just saw a picture of a pterodactyl, and the heads are definitely not the same. I would think it had the head of a bat or maybe like a fox. The thing finally flew into a clump of trees and vanished. And I heard you guys might be going back to Mount Shasta. If you do, please look out for this thing. If you see it, you will blank all over yourself. I kid you not. Okay, so considering the obscure nature of this supposed cryptid and the extremely sparse sightings reports, the bat squatch seems to be perhaps a purely fictional construct to be taken with a grain of salt, but it must be pointed out that winged humanoids of various types have been reported throughout the world and are very prominent in this category of cryptids that could very well be real. Also said to resemble some sort of bat-like creature or what have come to be known as the Lone Pine Mountain Devils of the American Southwest. They're said to look like hairy humanoid winged creatures with bat-like features and sharp claws. These beasts have been supposedly reported since the first foreign settlers arrived in the area with the Great Gold Rush of 1849. Gruesome stories of the creatures maiming wildlife and even humans were numerous back at that time, and one particularly macabre account comes from the missionary Father Justus Martinez, who in 1878 claimed the pack of these monstrosities that he described as winged demons from the depths of hell had massacred and partially eaten an entire convoy of 37 Spanish settlers, of which he was one of the only survivors. Father Martinez purportedly wrote in his journal of the attack, my Lord, they're all gone. The winged demons have risen. What sin have they committed against each other in the sacred earth? May the forgiving Lord not abandon their souls, which were taken from them into the depths of hell. And through the earthly fires of man, a sole tree remained on the mountain's peak, and the devils that spared me returned to the refuge of the lone pine of the mountain. So in those cases, the Lone Pine Mountain Devils are said to eat only the cartilage and soft tissue of their victims, leaving the rest to rot to the scavengers. Moving along, we come to another creature that is rather difficult to really categorize, which hails from the U.S. state of Illinois. For years, the swampy river areas of Saline County, Illinois, have apparently been plagued by reports of a hairy bipedal man-sized creature described as being similar in appearance to an anteater of all things, with an abnormally long pointed snout, which has come to be known as the Turtle Bottoms Monster. First reported in the 1960s, the creature has supposedly been frequently reported prowling about the wilderness, with former Harrisburg Police Chief Gary Crabtree saying that he had personally received around 50 such reports prior to retiring in 1999. The creature has been speculated as being everything from some sort of bizarre unknown primate to a genetic experiment gone wrong to exactly what it sounds like, an escaped anteater. But in other strange stories, we have tales of bizarre creatures that can only be described as some sort of a big cat, yet with truly startling variations. In South America, there are stories of a beast known as the Shekachutsan, the rainbow tiger or rainbow jaguar, which hunts the jungles of Ecuador. As its name implies, the animal is typically described as being the same general size and dimensions as a tiger or jaguar. But rather than the unusual color schemes of this big cat, it also has a chest adorned with a big, bold, and striking pattern of black, white, red, and yellow stripes. Another interesting feature is that the paws are not like a regular cat's, but rather more like a primate's, with fingers and a somewhat opposable thumb. All right, I'm going to end there because this is just one of the stories, but this is getting into a lot of the speculation and stuff too. Some of these I like on this story, but I'm not too crazy about some of these near the end. It just sounds a little bit too wacky, and that happens with this stuff with the monster subject, And I like the ones where, the police have investigated and you can actually find stories written from years ago about these things. There's a little bit in that one, but I'm going to go ahead and skip on. Let's get to the next one here. So I hope you guys are enjoying this, man. Like I said, we're just hanging out. We're chilling. We're chatting. We're going to talk about monsters. I got several stories to share here with you. So let's shift gears and let's check this one here out. Real quick, give me a second. Cat away. He's kind of being a jerk over there. See. He gets fussy, man. He wants your attention. And usually when I do these shows, he really starts freaking out because I'm talking and I can't play with him. I can't hang out with him. And, I think he just wants attention or something. I understand. I give him plenty of attention. Come up and just squeeze him as hard as I can, just squeeze him like 5 minutes at a time. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Don't do that to your cats, okay? Here's a story called Monsters and Human Sacrifice. finely sized rocky peninsula that juts out from the coast of the Yorkshire, England town of Filey. Local folklore suggests that the rocks are actually the remains of the bones of an ancient sea dragon. Unlikely, to say the least, but the story may have at least a basis in reality. In all likelihood, the story takes its inspiration from centuries-old sightings of giant monsters of the sea that called the crashing waters off Filey Brig their home. And one person who was able to attest to this was Wilkinson Herbert, a Coast Guard, who back in February 1934 had a traumatic and terrifying encounter with just such a sea dragon at Filey Brig. It was very appropriately a dark, cloudy, and windy night when Herbert's life was turned upside down. The first indication that something foul and supernatural was afoot came when Herbert heard the terrifying growling, what sounded like a dozen or more vicious hounds. The growling, however, was coming from something else entirely. As he looked out at the harsh, cold waves, Herbert saw to his terror a large beast around 30 feet in length and equipped with a muscular, humped back and 4 legs that extended into flippers. Before I continue on that, there are so many stories, all throughout our history of these creatures in the sea. I've got some more I'm going to share here in a little bit. Even this last year, I'm not crazy about the whole Loch Ness Monster thing and Bigfoot. Those are the basics, I feel like. I'm not even sure how I feel about those subjects. I see the Sasquatch thing tied more into a lot of, if it's real, tied into more of the Indian folklore and stuff like this, that these are way more than what we think they are, even spiritual type beings potentially. Loch Ness Monster, I wouldn't be surprised. There's better monster stories all around the world than Loch Ness. Nowadays there's real interesting footage, in other places other than Loch Ness it's very interesting stuff. But another reason I'm not too huge into those, and also for the Bigfoot enthusiasts, there's a documentary coming out. I'm not sure what it's called, but I just saw a trailer for it. It's coming out like this year, maybe even this month. But it's supposedly they got like the very best footage ever of a Sasquatch ever. They actually captured the footage. And I've seen this stuff, for years. It comes and goes. You always see a lot of people putting this stuff out there. There's whole television shows around Bigfoot that just never show anything. You might hear a stick break, in the background, or maybe like a really distant kind of a sound, but you never really have any encounters. They're making lots of money off of these ideas. I'd like to see the real stuff, right? But another reason I'm not crazy about those subjects is that, when people, in the real world, and not a lot of people know what I do, but some of them, when they find out, maybe family or friends of the family and stuff, when they find out what I do, they immediately go into the mode of like, "Ooh, you're a conspiracy theorist," So usually one of the first things they bring up is Bigfoot. Oh yeah, well, so you look into things, do you? They pull you aside and like, "Hey, what do you think about Bigfoot?" And they're serious. They think that's like a big secret. Or, hey man, oh you look into things? Hey man, come here. You ever heard of the Loch Ness Monster? Oh, you like to look into things. I see kind of a conspiracy theorist. Let me ask you something. You ever heard of Area 51? This is all the basic stuff. I'm way beyond the basic stuff, and most of you are too. But I'm never a jerk about it when they do that. I'll just kind of talk a little bit about it at first. But I'm always thinking, man, if these people knew the stuff I really get into, and the stuff like some of you, we all get into and look into, it would literally blow their minds. Because if they really think Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster is like a big deal, they ain't seen nothing yet, right? They ain't seen nothing yet. All right, man, so let's go ahead and continue on here. So for an instant, the bright glowing eyes of this beast locked into Herbert's eyes. Not surprisingly, he said it was a most gruesome and thrilling experience. I felt frozen. I've seen big animals before, but I've never seen anything like this. So further up the same stretch of coast is the county of Tyne, maybe, I don't know, and Ware, Tyne and Ware, Wear. And in the vicinity of the county's South Shields is Marsden Bay, an area that is overflowing with rich tales of magic, mystery, witchcraft, and supernatural and ghostly activity. Legend tells of a man named Jack Bates, who with his wife Jessie moved to the area in 1782, and instead of setting up home in the village of Marsden itself, the Bates family decided that they would blast a sizable amount of rock out of Marsden Bay and create for themselves a kind of grotto-style home, which still exists to this day. It wasn't long before local smugglers saw Jack's cave-like environment as the ideal place to store their goods, something which led Jack to become one of their number. It was a secret working arrangement that existed until the year of Jack the Blaster, they called him's death, in 1792. The caves were later extended to the point where they housed, rather astonishingly, a 15-room mansion eventually, and today the caves are home to the Marsden Grotto, one of the very few cave pubs in Europe. So Mike Hollowell is a local author and researcher who has uncovered evidence of a secret cult in that area that extends back centuries and which engages in controversial and dangerous activities. He has a deep interest in matters relative to Filey brig, sea serpents, and the Marsden Grotto. It all began with the Viking invasion of the UK in the 9th century and their beliefs in a violent, marauding sea monster known as the Shoni. And since the Shoni's hunting ground ranged from the coast of England to the waters of Scandinavia, and the monster had a reputation for ferociousness, the Vikings did all they could to placate it. And that primarily meant providing the beast with certain offerings. We're talking specifically about human sacrifices. It's interesting, they're offering human sacrifices to a beast in the water, a beast from the sea, perhaps a dragon in the sea. The process of deciding who would be the creature's victim is interesting. It was a very grim one. The crews of the Viking ships would draw straws, and he drew the shortest straw, and he would be doomed to a terrible fate. He would first be bound by hand and foot. Then, unable to move, he would have his throat violently slashed, after which the body of the unfortunate soul would be tossed into the churning waters with the hope that the Shoni would be satisfied and would not attack the Vikings' long ships, as they were known. Sometimes the bodies were never seen again. On other occasions, they actually washed up on the shore of Marsden, hideously mutilated, and savagely torn into pieces. Incredibly, however, this was not a practice strictly limited to the long-gone times when the Vikings roamed and pillaged in marauding fashion. Mike Hallowell was able to determine that belief in the Shoni never actually died out. As a result, the last such sacrifice noted occurred back in 1928. Hollowell's sources also told him that the grotto's caves regularly and secretly acted as morgues for the bodies of the dead that the Shoni would toss back onto the beach following each sacrifice. And now the story becomes even more disturbing as a dedicated researcher of the unknown, Hollowell began to dig even deeper into the enigma of Marsden's dragon cult and even contacted local police authorities to try and determine the truth of the matter and of the murders too. And it was at the height of his research that Hallowell received a number of anonymous phone calls sternly warning him to keep away from Marsden and its tale of this serpent sacrifice cult, and they verbally threatened him as to what might happen if he didn't. So to his credit, Hallowell pushed on, undeterred by the Men in Black type threats, and although much of the data is circumstantial, Hallowell has made a strong case that such a cult still continues these dark activities. And that's the ending of that story. And sacrifice. It's interesting. So before I go on, let me jump over to the chat real quick and just say hi again. It's been a second or two, or maybe 20 minutes. You guys are doing? How is everybody? I hope you're enjoying this, man. We're having a lazy afternoon, as Brett said. You're right. We're just going to have a chill, lazy afternoon. Effie, good to see you, Effie. Thanks for being here. I hope you guys are enjoying this, man. I love these kind of stories. They're interesting, and I've got more to come. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us for this. Coffee, it might be the other side of it might be dark time for you where you're at. I don't know. Maybe you fix a different kind of drink, whatever you're into. Somebody said, KG, talk about UFOs. But I've said before, I don't believe in aliens from other places and other planets and all this stuff. I always attribute it to demonic entities or fallen angels. A lot of videos on that subject. And again, back to my website, it's whoiskjosborne, OZBORNE.com. If you haven't been there yet, check it out. I put up a lot of really good, I think, interesting footage over there. UFOs. It's typically the orbs that dance around, they shape shift, and people more and more over the last year, really few years, they're seeing more and more of these orbs all over the place. UFOs or anything like that. I think these are living entities. So yeah, I've covered that a lot in the past, but not today. Not today. Haley Black, good to see you, Haley. Mia, what's up, Mia Measy? Thanks for being here. What's up, man? Yeah, nice to see you. Clout Lord says, talk about giants. I'll do another show on that sometime. I've talked about those as well, but hey, Kyle Waynick, good to see you, Kyle. We'll do a whole show on giants sometime. That predictive programming is all over the place in media too, everywhere with the giants. I just did that video about the giant, 45-foot woman they're going to put, naked woman, or they want to put in front of the Washington Memorial, in front of Osiris's penis, in front of the reflecting pool for the as above, so below. It's unbelievable. I mean, all this occult stuff, I've been saying it for years, man. The veil is lifting, and that's exactly what's happening. And we're seeing this stuff really come out to the forefront more and more. Weird, I think it was last year, rituals for Mother Goddess, and the awards shows and halftime shows and stuff like this. I mean, it's all just right out there now. Blatantly obvious to me. What's real. There is a God, there is a devil, there is a Jesus, and there's a decision for everyone to make. Let's continue. Oh, and haunted houses, that might be a good one too, Israel. Yeah, I could do one of those. I mean, everyone's got a haunted house in their neighborhood. You know what I mean, right? Haunted house, and we'll get into those stories, and that'd be a whole other show, maybe later on in October, because this is the month of monsters, right? So, I mean, we had one in my neighborhood when I was real little, named to it, and a really weird backstory at the windows and stuff at this house. And as I got older, I realized it was just an old couple that lived out there. But when I was little, as I didn't make up the name for this place, and I won't say it fully, but when I was a little kid growing up, and I was like, when we had this thing, was it 9 or 10? I was little. But there was this creepy old house kind of out, in a field a little bit away from our neighborhood. Trees. And the rumor in my neighborhood as a kid, and all the kids talked about it, they called this place, again, I didn't make up the name, but they called it inward plural. Okay. Inward plural mansion. Okay. Is because it was believed that the guy that lived there, I'm racist, an old school racist guy, KKK guy, and that he had murdered a lot of black people, back in the day with the KKK, and there were bodies, buried in the land around his house. And there's just one of those things. I have no idea where this story came from. I have no idea who started this, but as a little kid, it freaked me out. And we ride our bikes, up into the field and look at the house and ride our bikes a little closer. And it'd be like 4 of us, hanging out. A couple days later, you're like on this guy's property. And within a week, you're running up there and you're throwing rocks at the window, trying to get people to look out. Stupid. I know. This is what kids do. We're idiots. Throw rocks. We'd throw rocks at the window and at the house and try to get this guy to look out, or whoever. And it was so far away that every now and then somebody would kind of peek out, and then we'd all freak out and ride our bikes away, thinking, oh my gosh, the evil KKK man just saw us, or whatever. Weird plot of dirt or something on the land as we're riding, back in the neighborhood. It's like, that's where one of the bodies is buried. It's just, this is what kids do. It turns out you get older, and, we were harassing an old couple that were just trying to live their life. So, right. Bummer. But yeah, we'll get into haunted houses. That's another good subject for a whole show sometime. Here, let's go ahead and jump back, get into another one of these stories here. Once again, thanks for being here. fix something nice to drink, set the mood for yourself. We're just hanging out, man. Hanging out, we're chatting, monsters, is here and there. Okay, this one right here is one I really like. I did a video on this. I think I called it "Serpents Are Real, but What Are They?" And that's one from like 2 or 3 years ago. It's still on the channel because there are so many videos out there, snake-like looking things floating up in the sky. And I got to be tons more footage, but in that video alone, I showed several great examples of these things all over the place. A lot of them down in South and Central America, but there's also some in America I found too. But it looks like these flying serpents. It literally looks like flying serpents. It's interesting. Here's called The Strange Tales of Flying Serpents. I'm going to grab a drink of coffee real quick. You guys, give me 30 seconds if you don't mind, okay? I'm going to turn this on mute. I'll be right back. Hold on, okay? Okay, thanks. I'm back. All right, so Strange Tales of Flying Serpents. And like I said, if you want to see my video I did on this, like it's from a few years ago. It's called Sky Serpents Are Real, but What Are They? You can just put that in the search engine if you want to see that video. And that's back in the day when I could make more kind of music type videos for the channel. I could add music and effects and put in footage from other places. And I just can't really do that on my channel now. And this is one of the other reasons I made my website, so I can put up videos over there. There's no ads on the site. It's supported by the Patreons, and God bless you all. Thanks for those who support the channel and support my work. And you help me to continue, doing the things like this and doing more shows and videos. So thank you. But on there, without running Google Ads, I'm free to do whatever I want, basically. So I put up, like I said, even this new video I'm going to put up from the Sin City situation. It's got some pretty hardcore footage, and there's no way YouTube would take it. But beyond that, I've got a lot of cool paranormal, supernatural videos on there, footage and cool things. So again, something to check out for you. So here we go, Strange Tales of Serpents. In her 1909 book, Folk and Folk Stories of Wales, author Marie Trevelyan told a fascinating tale of a strange creature said to haunt a particular part of Wales. She said of the story, which was provided to her more than a century ago by a then elderly local woman. The woods around Penlyn Castle, Glamorgan, had the reputation of being frequented by winged serpents, and these were the terror of old and young alike. An older inhabitant of Penlyn, who died a few years back, said that in his boyhood, the winged serpents were described as very beautiful. Winged serpents, so we're told. Trevelyan continued. They were coiled when in repose and looked as if they were covered with jewels of all sorts. Now that's crazy, because a lot of these serpent videos I found when I put up the flying serpents, they look like they're shiny too. It's interesting. So, okay. So some of them had crests sparkling with all the colors of the rainbow. When disturbed, they glided away swiftly, sparkling all over the place to hiding places. When angry, though, they seemed to fly over people's heads with outspread wings, bright and sometimes with eyes open too, like the feathers in a peacock's tail they looked like. He said it was no old story invented to frighten children. Believe me, he said, this is a fact. His father and uncle had killed some of them, for they were as bad as foxes for poultry, the smaller ones. The old man attributed the extinction of the winged serpents to the fact that they were errors in the farmyards and coverts. That's crazy. Another such story also provided to Trevelyan, and also from the same area, states, an old woman whose parents in her early childhood took her to visit Penmark Place, Glamorgan, said she often heard the people talking about the ravages of these winged serpents in the neighborhood. She described them in the same way as the man of Penlyn, that there was a king and a queen of winged serpents, she said, in the woods round Buper. Early days said that wherever winged serpents were to be seen, there was sure to be buried money or something of value near at hand. I'll stop there too. Now, some people immediately write all this stuff off, the older stories, that's just a bunch of, but it really makes me wonder, because we got to remember, man, these people back in the day, they didn't have internet. They didn't have Google. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't even really have technology. And I've said this in the past about fairies and, the ancient mystical creatures, that I do believe a lot of these things could manifest and exist in the past to the primal type people, or at least the more primal than us, because I think they were more open to these things. The people, they were more innocent in the way they saw things in the world, and these things could actually manifest and appear more to people back in those days. I think it's much more difficult for that to happen nowadays with all the technology, and it's the way we think. It's just something I'm throwing out there, just a possibility. It's probably a mix of everything, all these stories, to some degree, but who knows? So she says her grandfather told her of an encounter with a winged serpent in the woods near Porthcurry Park, not far from Penmark. Their minds to catch one and watched a whole day for the serpent to rise. Then they shot at it, and the creature fell wounded, only to rise and attack my uncle, beating him about the head with its wings. She said a fierce fight ensued between the men and the serpent, which was at last killed. She had seen its skin and feathers, but after the grandfather's death, they were thrown away. That serpent was as notorious as any fox in the farmyards and coverts around Penmark. Moving on from Wells, there is a notable and somewhat similar story from the mother of a man named Izzet Göksu of Bursa, Turkey. At the time of the encounter in 1947, Göksu's mother was a young girl living in Bulgaria. She told her son, "I used to go out and fetch fresh water from the spring 200 meters from our house. One lovely summer evening, I picked up 2 buckets and started to walk towards the spring. After about 40 meters, I noticed what looked like branches on the path. But as I got closer, I saw them moving. They were black, gray, and white, thin, and 1 or 2 meters long. So I stopped, thinking they might be snakes, but they were moving in a straight line, not like snakes at all. And then there was a sudden and amazing development. As I got closer, something alarmed them, and they noticed me. They gave the weirdest cry I had ever heard before taking off and flying 2 or 3 meters above the ground, straight as arrows. They flew all the way to the spring about 150 meters away and disappeared behind the trees. I don't remember seeing any wings on them. But whenever I remember that cry, my hair still stands up on end." Concludes that story. Tales of flying serpents. I mean, I could have done a whole show just on the flying serpent thing. There's so many videos out there, footage that's interesting, stories, even modern day stories. And we have the dragons. We have dragons, right? With the history of the dragon. I mean, it makes you wonder, right? Is this an example of that? Let's see what else I got here. Got a bunch. Okay, this one sounds cool. This is called The Mysterious Tales of Murderous Trees. Quick. Just coffee. Nothing mixed in there. It's only 3 in the afternoon here, so I really don't drink that much. I'm not a huge drinker. When I used to do the night shows more, nice to have some wine every now and then and stuff like that, but I try to keep my head straight during the day. I got a cat I've got to keep an eye on first off. Now I've got work to do. And it looks like he's finally chilling. He's laying down and he's calm. So hopefully he just stays that way. We don't have to deal with him. So, and I know I'm not paying much attention to him. Like I said, when the show's over, I promise you guys, I'll go there. I'll pick him up in my arms. I will squeeze him as tight as I can for about 5 minutes. Just giving him all I've got to get. I'm just kidding. I would never squeeze my cat that hard or for that long. Mysterious Tales of Murderous Trees. So on this verdant, fertile planet of ours, trees are all around us, and for the most part, they've been more or less considered by most to be merely a part of the scenery, a sea of tranquil green amongst which we live. No one usually gives much thought to the trees, and they are certainly not typically considered to be threatening or insidious or even deadly. Yet sprinkled throughout history, there have been accounts of some trees that defy this trend. to lurch forth, to not only instill fear, but to actually kill. These are the mysterious trees of the world that seem to refuse to be just a part of the background, and which seem to have a thirst for blood. Dun dun dun. These are the trees which menace the world around them, and hold the rather bizarre reputation of being sinister bearers of death that are so much more than just a collection of branches, leaves, and a tree trunk. So stories of murderous trees can be found from all over the world and come in a variety of forms. One very peculiar account comes from 1885, when a German expedition to New Guinea, under the command of a Lieutenant von Immer Gassendi, prestigious Dr. Kummel, came across a singularly strange and potentially deadly tree in the thick mosquito-infested jungles there. The expedition reportedly made anchor off the coast of Cape de la Torre and proceeded to push inland through dank, swampy jungle, tribes of hostile natives, and swarms of venomous creatures. After a grueling 12-day journey of slogging through nearly impenetrable vegetation, harrowing encounters, and numerous hazards to climb up to an elevation of around 5,000 feet above the surrounding sea of, or 5,000 above the surrounding sea of green, they finally encountered an open, almost park-like area, which made the trek much easier than it had previously been. So strangely, it was noticed that this new country brought with it its own set of problems, as the compass started to go haywire at this time in a manner that Gassendi described as acting drunk or utterly drunk. There were also eerily several skeletons of animals scattered about the clearings, and the curious absence of the usual incessant drone of the jungle. So throughout the whole journey, Dr. Kummel had purportedly been tirelessly poking around in the wilderness looking for new animal and plant specimens, and during this respite from the claustrophobic walls of underbrush and trees which had been enveloping them the entire way, he came across a rather large tree looming in a clearing, the likes of which he had never seen before. It was ringed by a series of strange buttress-like outgrowths that protruded from the ground. It was certainly a new species of some sort, but of what type he could not ascertain. One of the men took a casual chop at one of these outgrowths with his machete, and this is where things got odd indeed. A haphazard chop broke off a chunk which proved to have a strange black core in its center. Dr. Kummel, who had never seen anything like this before, excitedly ran over to pick up the specimen, and as he did, he suddenly cried out in pain and rolled head over heels to slump to the ground in a daze. When other expedition members asked him what had happened, he groggily explained that as he picked the piece up, it had jolted him with a rather potent electric-filling shock. Another of the men, perhaps skeptical of the claims, also tried to pick the piece up and experienced the same thing, being thrown roughly to the ground by a severe shock amidst gasps of surprise. So by this time, Gassendi had approached and decided to try an experiment. He took a long length of copper wire and placed one end on each side of the black core, which generated a violent reaction by powerfully deflecting the wires aside with a considerable current, he wrote. Gassendi would later say of the strange tree, "Every branch and every twig of the tree, which I can assure you we treated with much respect, presented similar ridges and cores, with the addition of a thicker central one, and I quickly proved that the current circulated through the entire system. How it is kept up, no one at present can tell, but there it is. I am not able to say what the intensity or the quantity of the current might have been, but it was enough to knock you down in a very unpleasant way. On the tree and would have to have cut it down, but it seemed like a dangerous job to undertake. We saw a great many more of the same kind further on, quite a forest, in fact." So unfortunately, the expedition was forced to return to their ship when Gassendi came down with a vicious, life-threatening fever, and no further investigation into the strange electric trees could be made. Taking back samples from the trees, including pieces of the wood, core, and some seeds. Although it's unclear what became of them, Dr. Kummel would later speculate that the strange trees had been the culprit behind the scattered skeletons in the clearing of the land, as they had with their electric shocks killed anything that came or grew close to it. And he would christen the new species Alasia electrica, considering that there is nothing quite like this in the known plant world. It would be quite an amazing discovery indeed, yet we are left with nothing but these unverified accounts. Clear if the alleged electric tree of New Guinea was actually carnivorous or just lashed out with its deadly powers for defensive purposes, but another supposed killer tree most certainly does actively hunt and kill its victims. Tucked within the remote wilderness of Mexico is said to be a type of predatory tree known as the, quote, snake tree. This mysterious type of tree is said to grow to a height of around 20 feet tall and has a massive, gnarled, and twisted trunk. The tree is said to be completely devoid of any foliage, and it is supposedly decked out with slimy, snake-like branches that are covered in tiny suckers and which blindly writhe about in all directions and constantly coil and uncoil like restless, hungry serpents. So when a bird or other small animal comes near the tree, it purportedly lashes out to surround the prey with a web of these tentacles and proceed to suck it dry of all of its blood. Thinking, we've got to see a picture of this tree. I don't know about this one right here. I'm not sure. The snake tree. And I've got so many windows open, I can't do a quick search or anything. But if someone wants to look up snake tree in Mexico, that'd be interesting to see if something like that really exists. Otherwise, this is just someone's account of this, but or just could be made up. But I'd like to actually see a picture of this snake tree in Mexico. So anyway, it says after which it will cast off the desiccated remains to the ground to add to the piles of bones and skulls that are said to surround these horrific trees. That one sounds made up. I'm not so sure. I mean, a lot of these I could see some truth in some of these stories, but that one I'm not so sure about. Maybe if you want to look it up, you find something on the Mexican snake tree, let us know. I'll continue though. Although the snake tree seems to mostly feed off of smaller animals, one of these trees trying to attack a human being. In a report from 1890, a botanist rode out into the Mexican Badlands to search for unique or unusual specimens. Account you could look up too from 1890. It says during his trek he came across the tree and witnessed a bird land upon it to be violently entwined in the deadly serpentine branches. I mean, if this was real, I'm just saying it's pretty fascinating. But I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody by now would have seen, unless it just existed back then. I don't know. But I'll continue. It is interesting, though, to think. So during his trek, came across the tree and witnessed a bird landing upon it to be violently entwined in the deadly serpentine branches and pulled within the mass of tentacles to disappear from sight. Though horrified but curious, botanist then crept closer and would later report of the tree. He said, I approached as closely as I dared and examined the tree, and it was low in size, not more than 20 feet, but covering a great area. Its trunk was of prodigious thickness, knotted and scaly. From the top of the trunk, a few feet from the ground, its slimy branches curved upward and downward, nearly touching the ground with their tapering tips. Its appearance was that of a gigantic tarantula, it looked like. Amazing. On my venturing to lightly touch one of its limbs, it closed upon my hand with such force that when I tore it loose, the skin actually came ripping off. Let's go to this next one. Another rather foul-tempered tree was reported from the wilderness of the state of Arizona in the United States, where there was said to reside a tree that seems to have had a rather bad attitude. In 1894, there was a report from Arizona that spoke of a tree that reportedly seemed to be of a coniferous species, standing at a height of around 25 feet with long, slender quills, like a porcupine. When in a relaxed state, the quills lay close to the branches, and there was said to be a rather sweet, pleasant odor exuding from it. However, if the tree was agitated in any way, its quills were said to rise up straight, and the attractive aroma was replaced with an odoriferous stench. This was said to happen particularly often if a dog got anywhere near it, and other wildlife such as bears, mountain lions, wolves were said to steer well clear of it. If one were to get close, even in the face of this intimidating display, it was said to actually rip and tear at its enemies to maim or kill, and it was also reported to be incredibly resistant to physical damage. Here we go. So one Colonel Brace Dion, Bracedion. If you want to look that up and see if that's even a real person, shed some more light on this particular story. He said of the tree, Brace Dion, Colonel Bracedion. If you want to look this up and let's research this, let's see if this stuff's real. All right, this one. He said there are more queer things to the acre in Arizona than in any other part of this wild land. And according to my idea, and I know pretty near what queer things are. Well, they used to say queer. This is back. They used to say queer all the time, right? It didn't mean what it means now. Of course. It meant weird and unusual. Strange. I know pretty near what queer things are. The queerest thing in all Arizona is the tree that has a temper worse than a blonde comic opera prima donna's, that's his words, I guess, and gets its dander up with just a small provocation. Some folks out at Houck's Tank, Houck's Tank, call this tree the porcupine tree, and some say its right name is skunk tree. I call it the holy terror tree, but no matter what you call it, it is a queer job of nature, and Arizona claims it as her own. A rather bizarre and vicious tree of some sort was also apparently discovered in the northern part of Hawaii in 1895. An English botanist was apparently exploring the region when he entered a ravine that his local guide showed a clear aversion to going into. And thinking this to be all superstitious nonsense, the botanist kept on into the unknown and came across a circular hole of sorts that was reported as being around 100 yards in diameter. Scattered around this depression was purportedly the macabre site of a circle of bleached bones comprised of animals, birds, and even human beings, and it was noticed that no other vegetation grew anywhere within 50 feet of it. The center was occupied by a well-like opening in the ground, from which crept tendrils of some sort of smoke or gas. With the coming of darkness and the guide's desperate pleas that they leave at once, the botanist was forced to retreat and wait until the next day to explore this curiosity. When he left the next day, he did so as the guide performed some sort of ritual to protect him from harm, which he ignored before pushing out once more into the jungle towards the strange depression in the ground that he had seen. As the botanist trekked through the wilderness, he reportedly came across a wall of lava, next to which loomed a 12-foot-high mass of green that was described as looking like seaweed, with the ring of animal bones around it, and which possessed fine streamers, he said, quote-unquote, radiating from it. When the botanist moved, he made the unsettling observation that all of the streamers perked up and aimed in his direction before seeming to creep closer. Reminds me of Little Shop of Horrors, or something like that almost, doesn't it? Thinking that this was all rather threatening, the botanist began to back away from the bizarre tree, but as he did, he slipped and fell backwards. He reported that something hissed loudly and struck him so violently, he wrote this, quote-unquote, so violently on the crown of his heavy felt hat that he lost consciousness. When he came to, he reported that he saw a long snake-like object twisting about on the rocks, and that a low, angry hum filled the air. He never did establish a connection between this incident and the sinister, bone-ringed depression he had found, and he never did make it back up to that place to find out, instead opting to get out of there as quickly as possible. Certainly a weird tale, and one wonders just what he actually encountered out there in that jungle. Take a quick drink here. Just coffee. So there's a certain feel of high adventure and mystery to many of these tales, with explorers excuse me, with explorers too strange. Some of this writing's off. There is a certain feel of high adventure and mystery to many of these tales, faraway exotic lands and encountering these bizarre killer plants, hiding within the dim recesses of uncharted forests lost to civilization. Another such tale concerns a deadly tree that supposedly existed on the island of Java in the East Indies, which was known as the Bohan Upas. And if you want to look this up, UPAS, with Upas being the Javanese for poison, or more ominously and spectacularly known to the West as the Hydra Tree of Death. One of the first mentions of this tree in the West comes from an account by the French Catholic traveler Friar Jordanus, Jordanus. You look that one up. Friar Jordanus, who in the 14th century wrote of trees in Java that produced flowers that exuded a noxious, poisonous cloud that would kill anything that came near them. Such malevolent trees came from travelers over the centuries, and considering the exotic, remote location of these reports, the idea of mysterious, murderous trees in the jungles of Java took hold in the imagination of Westerners, for whom many Java was still a wild and untamed land back in the day. The tale of the Bohan Upas really took off and gained popularity in the 18th century when a German doctor named J. N. Forsch, Foersch, claimed in a 1783 article, there we go, I like when they can substantiate some of this, claimed in a 1783 article of the London Magazine that he had collected several first-hand accounts of these killer trees when he had been stationed in the Dutch East Indies, as a surgeon, and he had decided to mount a daring expedition to find them for himself. In his account, Forsch claimed that there was only one of these trees known to exist, and they had found it in the jungles tucked away within a secluded area surrounded by high hills. According to him, the tree lived up rather quite well to its deadly reputation. The land around it for up to 12 miles was apparently completely devoid of all vegetation, not even a single blade of grass, and every animal that entered was purportedly quickly overcome and smothered by a noxious gas, like the putrid stream of a marshy cavern, he wrote, with birds that flew into the bleak, poisonous zone spontaneously dropping dead in midair. Forsch claimed that he had circumnavigated this deathly desert and come across an old hermit who lived on the fringes of this wasteland, who claimed that he was stationed there in order to provide equipment and last rites to the criminals he said were sent to the tree in order to attempt to gather its potent resin. The old hermit explained that these criminals accepted the task in lieu of a direct death sentence, and that before they entered the barren ring of death surrounding the tree, they would dress in protective gear consisting of, quote, a long leather cap with 2 glasses before their eyes, which comes down as far as their breasts, as well as sturdy gloves, after which they would venture forth towards the lone tree, which was the only splash of green in a sea of brown and death, bloated carcasses. But according to the hermit, only 1 in 10 of these poor souls made it back alive, the rest doomed to drop and rot away on that deathly tundra to wait for others to join them. According to Forsch, the toxic resin was collected from the tree to be used for the purpose of executing criminals, and he even claimed to have witnessed the poison used in this way on at least one occasion, saying that the victims died writhing and contorting in horrible agony. So as incredible as this account is, there were doubts that this tree ever existed, of course, with some botanists at the time claiming that such a tree was impossible. And although the general public ate up this tale of adventure and exotic danger, serious scientists at the time largely scoffed at Frosch's report, although not all. Even today, his account is often blamed for perhaps being an exaggerated tale that embellished certain grains of truth. For instance, there is indeed a tree that locals call the upas, which does indeed produce a deadly poison that they use for poison-tipped arrows. But the tree does not produce deadly airborne clouds that kill anything near it, with its odor actually being quite harmless. It has also been pointed out that the barren circle of death surrounding the tree and the rumors of fatal fumes could have been the result of the area being plagued with toxic gases generated by an extinct volcano near Upas, which had a crater that spewed carbonic gas and sulfur that indeed snuffed out the life of any creatures that ventured too close, littering the valley with skeletons. The idea of men going into this wasteland to gather the tree's resin may also have originated from the locals who risked their lives to gather sulfur from the volcanic crater. It's unknown whether Bohan Upas tree ever really existed or not, but it is an intriguing tale nevertheless. Another poisonous killer tree, similar in some respects to the Bohan Upas, was alleged to exist in the uncharted wilderness of Zululand, South Africa, in the 19th century. It is called the Umdelpi, as well as more straightforward, the tree of death. This tree was said to look similar to an aspen and to use potent poison gas in order to kill animals, supposedly for the purpose of using their rotting carcasses to fertilize the soil around it. According to reports, the trees were usually found to have piles of skeletons and animal carcasses in various stages of decomposition scattered about the trunk. While in a calm state the trees would be safe to approach, they could deal out a sudden lethal cloud that could drop any animal within seconds. Explorers who got too close to this tree reported a wide range of unpleasant symptoms from this poison, such as chills, headaches, bloodshot eyes, severe pain, rashes, abdominal swelling, diarrhea, fever, delirium, and of course death. Additionally, it was said that if the characteristic thick double-layered bark was cut, it would release an aggressively caustic liquid akin to an acid that could burn skin and melt objects. Let me keep scrolling down here. One murderous tree that is quite likely rooted, says in myth. I want to get to more of the, I get some of the stories, some of the made up stories and all this stuff. And I don't like that so much. They mix them all in here. They put in the good stuff and then they put in the myth too, because there's always some truth in a lot of these myths. So I think that covers the tales of the murderous trees. Let me see what else I have over here. Let's see. try this one. Or better yet, this one. Along with, along with like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and all this, another thing I've seen a lot over the last few years is the stuff with mermaids. They had they did like a Discovery or maybe a National Geographic documentary or mockumentary on mermaids a while back. And of course, there's tons of people on YouTube that were taking the footage from that and putting it on YouTube. Mermaid found. It's finally this actual footage. I mean, there was a whole. This was within like it was last year, but don't you remember? Some of you may remember this that are normal YouTubers that come around a lot. That there was for a while like this whole like mermaid thing going on. It was like this whole everybody making videos on mermaids. All this mermaid stuff coming out. There was even a video. I mean, they're getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views. The mermaids are here. It's real mermaids. But like I said, it's so hard. That's why you really have to dig into this stuff, and look at it from all kinds of angles, because some of it is myth, some of it's made up, some of it's real. Some of it really did happen back in the day. Where did these creatures go? So yeah, it's a mix. But the mermaid thing, and it was all fake footage. And again, people made a lot of money, which is fine. I'm sure a lot of people made a lot of money on putting up these bogus mermaid videos and stuff, but it just is bogus. Is all bogus. It's all from a TV special. Most of the footage I saw on the mermaid, the mermaids. So anyway, but there are tons of very interesting stories and accounts of the mermaids, from throughout history. So, what's real and what's not, right? Same thing with Bigfoot. There's always a lot of people faking Bigfoot stuff and all that. But then every now and then you see some, you're like, well, see, and it's hard to tell, is it real or not? Because we know people fake this stuff. So, but let's try this one out. This is called The Evil Mermaids of Africa. Let's check this out. And this is from March 7th of 2017. Give me a second. I'm going to bring this story up. I'm going to grab another drink real quick. Then after this, I'll check with you guys in the chat. All right, guys, thanks. So, within the lore and history of actual sightings of mermaids and various mer beings all over the world, those creatures have come in a surprisingly wide array of forms. There are the beautiful maidens of legend with their flowing hair and fishtails. There's the more ape-like fish beasts of other traditions, and pretty much everything in between. Dispositions range all over the place as well, with mer beings running the gamut from seductive sirens to benevolent protectors of the sea, to shy and reclusive things only fleetingly seen, to vicious, savage monsters that can only be described as sinister and evil. Of the many places from which mer beings are reported, one place that definitely has the latter is the continent of Africa. On the dark continent, mermaids are considered to be far more than just legend, and also seem to be rather far from benevolent. Sorry, I'm bringing this up. Many regions of Africa have a rich tradition of mermaids, particularly in the southern portion of the continent. In the country of Zimbabwe, mermaids have been long featured prominently in various myths and legends, where they are often called the Mondeo and are portrayed as malicious creatures that enjoy pulling bathers or swimmers under the waves to their death. Although many see such tales as just spooky lore, there are apparently quite a few Zimbabweans exist, and incidents or sightings involving mermaids often crop up in this region, even recently. In 2012, work being carried out at the Gokwe Dam in Midlands and the Osborne Dam in Manicaland on reservoirs near the towns of Gokwe, Manicaland, and Mutare was suspended because workers refused to go to work because they were all claiming that they had been terrorized by these mermaids that were lurking there, which were said to look like pale-skinned humans with black hair and fishtails. The workers were originally supposed to do repairs and install water pumps there, but became frightened when some people in the area mysteriously vanished and others reported being attacked and chased by these creatures. Things with the stalled project got so bad that the Zimbabwe Water Resources Minister, Sam Sepepa Nkomo, appeared before a parliamentary committee to explain the situation. Nkomo said that white workers have been brought in because they were not as steeped in such lore, but even they claimed to have spotted the creatures and also refused to go back to work. Rural and Urban Development Minister Ignatius Chombo also made the arrangements to have tribal chiefs of the area perform rites and rituals to appease these creatures, if only to put the workers' minds at ease. According to the tribal leaders who were consulted, many lakes and reservoirs of the region are inhabited by these creatures, and dams seem to be a favorite spot for them to congregate, although they were said to be typically drawn to larger dams than the ones that have been plagued, such as the huge dam at Lake Kariba, which is a hotbed of such sightings. When faced with the question of whether they thought these creatures really exist, they were unanimous and adamant, all the people, in their assertion that yes, they do. When asked if the mermaids of Zimbabwe's lakes were real, one chief, Edison Chihota of the Mashonaland East, said, "As a custodian of the traditional, I have no doubt. For anyone to dispute this is also disputing him or herself." For his part, Nkomo was more worried about the fact that the workers refused to come back and was going through with the rituals merely to dispel the fears. He was skeptical that their problems were being caused by literal mermaids, blaming it on a mix of superstition, perhaps combined with optical illusions and weird water currents, he said. He would say the matter in Muter, what I think is happening is that there must be a sanction underneath there which creates a hole, and the water will actually be swirling violently, that if you fell in, will not come out, even if you had an oxygen mask. Even that sounds goofy, because people are describing these as white-skinned humanoids with black hair and tails, right? Anyway, moving on. Another African nation in the same general region, which has long experienced mermaid phenomena in South Africa. Such tales and lore go back for centuries here, and ancient rock paintings of humanoids with fishtails drawn by the Khoisan people of the region have been found in one of the most arid areas of the country, in a vast, barren, semi-desert wasteland known as the Karoo. And just why this desert-dwelling people would have mermaids as part of their lore still remains a mystery, but the region did once lie underwater, and there have been sightings of such creatures reported from the greener Klein Karoo to the south, where mountain spring water creates pools and even water-filled caverns where these creatures are said to live. These mountain-dwelling mermaids are in no way friendly and have long been said to lure travelers to the water in order to drown them. These creatures are typically not seen as flesh and blood creatures, but rather as powerful spirits or demons, and are greatly revered and feared by tribes of that area. In some areas of South Africa, mermaids are often called the Kaiman, interestingly from the German word for caiman, and are typically described as a race of malevolent creatures that drown their victims, and are typically described as looking like half-fish women with black hair and glowing red eyes. One sighting report comes from 2008 at the quaint and isolated rural village of Serbrak. A local witness, Daniel Cupido, claimed that he had been hanging out with some friends along the banks of the Buff, I guess it's Buffasjags River, on the evening of January 5th, when they suddenly heard a curious sound coming from a nearby low water bridge that sounded like someone bashing on a wall. When they went to investigate, it is claimed that in the murky darkness under the bridge, they could make out what looked like a white woman with long black hair. The woman seemed to be in trouble, and she was thrashing about in the water, and Cupido allegedly waded into the water to try and help her out, but moments later came running back in a state of panic. When his friends asked him what had happened, he told them that the woman's eyes he had seen were red, they were flickering, and that her gaze had been hypnotic, that he couldn't pull himself away at first. One of the friends, Martin Olkers, went over to see the thing for himself and claims that what he saw was profoundly scared him. There, swimming through water around the bridge, he could see the same woman who his friend had described, complete with the red shine in her eyes. He said that the figure was definitely female, and that the whole time he watched her, she made a sound reminiscent of crying, which he described as the strangest sound ever. The mermaid was also said to have an ethereal silver-white sheen around it, although they said none of those present had ever believed in the stories of the caiman before. This bizarre encounter apparently convinced them that the creatures are real, and none of them were found to have been drinking alcohol or taking in any drugs. They all seemed to be genuinely unsettled by this experience. From South Africa showcases the creature's more sinister tendencies. On December 31st, 2015, a 12-year-old boy named, and these names, Siyabonga Masango in Mpumalanga, South Africa, reportedly went to the bank of a tributary of the Sabi River to meet his friends for a swim and never returned. When authorities were brought in and the area searched, no sign of the boy was turned up despite an intensive investigation by diving teams. Although police blamed strong currents in the river at the time or a crocodile attack for Masongo's disappearance, the boy's family explained to them that the boy had been kidnapped by a mermaid, an assertion backed up by another eyewitness who claimed that he had seen the boy pulled into the water by a pale-skinned creature. The witness claimed that he had then gone to try to help the boy, but that he had completely disappeared into the muddy, murky water, pulled in by something that very well could have been coiling to lash out at him as well. Another evil mermaid is said to lurk at Marikana Dam near the town of Mabopane, north of Pretoria, and has been blamed for at least one death there. Known to the locals as the Mamogashwa, it is described as a being that is half human and half fish, with the upper body resembling a woman. The strange mer-being has supposedly been seen prowling about the waters of the dam on numerous occasions, as well as being spotted several times basking out on the banks of the lake, and is believed by locals to not only cause drownings, but also to induce bad dreams in the villagers. An account from an article from the Record North news site, 15-year-old Mapoho Shangwe was out by the dam with some friends in April of 2016 when they saw what they thought to be a woman swimming in the water who beckoned them closer. As they approached, they allegedly noticed that this was no ordinary woman, and that from the waist down she had the body and tail of a fish. The frightened kids then tried to run away, and that was when the creature supposedly lurched up from the water and tried to grab at Shangwe and pull him under the surface as he screamed for help. When other alarmed villagers arrived to help out, the boy's lifeless body was purportedly found lying a few meters from the dam, but there was no sign of the mermaid the other boys claimed to have seen. So according to the article, this is apparently not the only death that the mermaid has been responsible for, and a village resident named Elsie Nahlapo was quoted as saying in the wake of the attack on Shanway, "We told the police about the mermaid, but they are afraid to go there to investigate. I don't even know if they believe us. 3 people that I'm aware of, 2 kids and an adult, have been killed at the dam, but police still refuse to go near there." One of the weirder accounts of a mermaid in South Africa is the totally bonkers tale of a mermaid that was supposedly seen flying through the sky in November of 2014. In the city of these names, Tshwane. And here is where we get into some of the surreal territory. The mermaid was allegedly sighted flying over the Marula Sun shopping complex parking lot from the direction of the Marula Sun Casino and was seen by several witnesses. The mermaid is said to be a long-time nuisance to that area, occasionally taking the form of a woman to actually go to the casino and complain about the noise before slinking back. Okay, this one sounds a little bit more of the cuckoo crazy. I think we're good on the mermaids, though. Those are interesting. I like those. It even goes back again, if this stuff does take place and people are being harmed by creatures like this or whatever, I mean, to me, if it was real, if it's real, it goes back to that theory of, before technology and more isolated type places, I think people are more prone or akin to seeing these things or being allowed to see these things if they exist. And these things are all happening out in South Africa in various isolated places. So it's interesting. It makes you wonder. There he is. Hi. You want to say hi to the people? It's my cat. What's up? Nothing? Okay. He's shy. All right, so that's the evil mermaids of Africa. So let's go ahead and move on here. Let me check on the chat too real quick and see how you guys are doing over there. Move my kitty out of the way here. Now he wants some pettins. The next story we're going to get into is called Marco Polo and Cryptozoology. This one's interesting. I've read through some of this one. So give me 1 second. Let me check over there with you guys and see what's going on. I may take about a minute break here in a second because it's been about an hour and a half we've been going. So I may have to jump just for a second here, refill the coffee. So hi guys, how are you in chat? Everything good? You still here with us? Hope you're enjoying the show. Having a good afternoon. Hope things are great. A lot of discussion going on over there. All right, cool. Checking in on you, saying hi. Thanks for being here once again. And get back to one of the stories. Before I do, though, I'm going to take another break here for maybe just about a minute. So it's going to go quiet for just about a minute. I'll be right back. 1 second. My chat just all went crazy. Give me a second here. All right, cool. All right, cool. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Give me about a minute, and I'll be right back for the next story, okay? And thanks again for being here, man. Like I said, I appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. Be right back. Starting now. Okay, guys, thanks. I'm back. I just got some more coffee. I was looking at the chat for a second. Like I said, we're chilling out, man. No rush. We have no set schedule here. But I saw somebody say something. Hey, move, Bubby. Go, Chubby. Let's see what we got here. Here's a guy in chat called Osteopath 1C. I just saw this from him. He says, you all want it to be fake so bad that you speaking up in my town shills. This is my last effort to set the record straight. Don't let me down, KJ. So I don't even know what that's about. I just looked at chat and yours was the first message I saw. So I don't know how I'm letting you down. I don't even know what you're talking about. But again, I've been reading the stories. Take a gander here at the chat for a second. So Osteopath 1C, what are you talking about? Oh, are you talking about the Sin City situation? He says, you all want it to be fake so bad that you call the other people speaking up in my town shills. Is that what you're talking about, Osteopath 1C, is the whole thing with the Sin City situation? Fake to create hoaxers. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, now I see your answer. Hey, man, that's why. Oh, hey, Whitney, good to see you. It's been a long time. Whitney Baxter, nice seeing you. that's one of the reasons I'm adding. I mentioned earlier, you may have missed the beginning of the show, but I did do a video addressing the Vegas thing. It's on my website because I found some really graphic footage on LiveLeak. There he is. What's up, Chubbs? Hey, what's your problem? You gonna say something? Okay, I guess not. But I found some footage there that's just, I mean, it's like you said, it's really, oh, get down. Go on. And, you know, like people make up your own minds. I do believe people got hurt there. You know, that's from what I've seen and understand. But again, when I make videos and look at things, I'm not one of these guys that gets into all this stuff. You know, I mean, I know it was a false flag. People don't get hurt in false flags. And then there's actual hoaxes. You know, there's some of these things can actually be hoaxes too, but not, you know, I mean, I think a lot of it is, people who are under mind control. It's patsies that are set up while the government, actually, they'll have a patsy set up and they'll blame it all on, you know, stuff like that. I mean, footage is incredibly graphic and it shows people with holes through their head and blood spilling out. I mean, I'm just telling you, okay? And, you know, I'm warning you again, and I'll warn you in the video. This is what I found. I felt it was important to put it out there. It's safe for me to put it on the website, but I can't put it up here on YouTube. So, and you make up your own mind, okay? And I have talked against what I call the hoax tards in the past. You know, but people who say that everything's a hoax. I think that's a big part of a government psyop that's taking place in the truth movement. Things real, you know, it's dangerous thinking. You're missing a lot of the truth when you're doing that. And I think a lot of it, these people are paid to do this. No one got hurt. Nothing's real. And everything. They say everything's a hoax. Nothing's real. And that's not critical thinking. It's not being logical or reasonable. So that's my take on it. But I get your message, Osteo. Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, exactly, Daniel. 911 was a false flag and people died. Classic example, right? Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Hipple, hi, thanks. Don't bet the tail or be the tail. I don't know if you've lost. I just had to go to a thing. I don't know if y'all have lost people in your lives. I don't know. You know, there's been a lot of death lately, man. I mean, have you noticed in your own lives, like a lot of people dying around you, or people you know that know people dying, and it's just a lot of it. I was close to a few months back. In January, I lost 2 friends from high school. Went to, it seems like there's more. My parents' church to a memorial just this past week. A guy died there. He's 35, but you know, I knew him. We've known each other. I knew him his whole life. Kitty, get out of there. Hey, all right, come on. There you go. You know to get out of there. You may have heard him there. He knows when he's in trouble. Memorial for this guy, and like I said, we knew each other forever. I knew him when he was just like a tot, you know, and he's 35, and he OD'd on pharmaceuticals, on pain meds and stuff. Just a lot of that going on. But you know, that's why I always try to be really respectful when I see these events taking place out there. Hey, stop it. But I'm really respectful with that stuff because, again, it's like, buddy, can you imagine being involved in one of these things and actually seeing someone die or losing somebody in your life, and then going online and seeing all these people saying, you know, it's bullshit, it didn't happen, you know, it's all a fraud, it's all a setup, no one died, you know, stuff like that. I mean, it would hurt. You know, it just continues to victimize you. You know, there's times that stuff isn't set up. I know that sometimes it is. You know, you have to use all of your resources in your mind, your critical thinking skills. You know, if you have it, you know, you got to spiritually discern such things. Give me a second, guys. I think I'm fitting to put Fatty away. Come here, Chubbs. Thanks, guys. Hold on. Too rowdy today, buddy. All right, thanks, guys. He's trying to start a fight with me. We'll go later. I'm just kidding. I have to put him in lockup though. When he starts getting real go crazy like that, I have to put him in lockup. You know, he sleeps in his own room. I have to shut the door at night just because he still can't be trusted, you know, at night, because he'll just get up and he's not supposed to. Why am I telling you about my cat and my relationship with my cat? Shucks, I don't know. I guess it's happening right now. Maybe that's why. I love the little dude. Don't get me wrong. I love him. Anyway, so the death thing and the hoaxes and the this and the that. Yeah, you'll see the video over on the website. All right. So let's see what else we got over in here. Yeah, Chubbs is getting rebellious. He's not quite 2 yet. Rascal, I don't even like talking much about him because I had to leave him back in Central America. But some of you have been with me for a while knew Rascal. I think even talked on the speaker a few times here and there. I've actually put him in some videos. I did a few videos from Costa Rica, and one of them actually has Rascal on my front porch, so you can actually see him. And he was a rascal, you know, he's rowdy, he's crazy. But out there, he was an indoor outdoor, and he could basically be in the jungle all day playing and then come back at night and he'd be sweet and lovey. And you know, he doesn't have a jungle, unfortunately, so I have a lot of toys for him. I have to use toys a lot. One of the most brilliant toys ever with cats was the laser pointer. I mean, they love it. They love it. The only thing I don't like about it is it gets him so excited that when I stop using it, he gets pissed. You know, he starts making noises and running around, and it just gets crazy. I'm rambling about my cat. And we were supposed to be having monster stories today. Let's see what we got here. First, I'll jump back here to chat for a second. All right, guys, just checking in, saying hi. Thanks again for being here. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Let's continue. Oh, Full Metal 388. How you doing? Sorry your cat died, man. That word, Plain Joe. They definitely can be at times. Certainly. The headline says, KJ, do you think it's disrespectful to question these events? Of course not. And look at evidence? Of course not. Don't you think the truth is important? Of course. Even like, I don't cover this stuff a lot because I'm more of I look at the spiritual side of things oftentimes, but it's such a divisive thing. And see, even right there, I never said that, hacking the headlines. I have to question if you're a troll. Are you real? Are you cool? Are you one of these ghost channels that just trolls everybody? I don't know. It's another thing I had to work through it, but I was hating YouTube for a while just because of all of this. It's like all these flat earth, this, everything's a hoax. Everyone in Hollywood's a tranny. You know, it's like I see all the psyops and it's ridiculous. Real. And then you're putting words into my mouth. Do you think this is just... No, did I ever say that? See, that's really annoying when trolls do that. Thank God on YouTube it's so easy to block people and get rid of them. So I'm not going to do that with you yet, hacking. I don't know if you're a freaking tool. You know, I don't know if you're just another hack, another fraud, another troll, you know, just trying to start a narrative, or if you genuinely wonder those questions. If you knew my work and followed me for a while, you would know that's totally bogus. Look into everything, you know, and then we want the truth out, so we tell the truth. I just don't jump in, and that's why usually I'll wait for a while to do videos on situations like this, because all the truth's not out yet. There's still stuff coming out every day. And I'm already seeing these huge battles taking place online against people over this subject. And that's part of why it's there. Final world order, like when the Antichrist really has his 36 months or whatever, right? Where we're heading. We've been heading there for a long time. And that's why right after this event, I put clips of these guys doing this as well. It's on the website also. Again, YouTube, I can't put it up. But all the late night talk show goobers are on there, and every one of them are crying and talking about taking away your guns. Guys, they've been doing this forever. That's why they keep doing these events. They want to take away the guns. Up to them to take away the guns to keep doing this stuff, and at times literally killing innocent people. Don't you think? Time is drawing near. biggest event like this in our history so far. So it's escalating. All this stuff is escalating. And they keep attacking it, people. A friend of mine pointed this out to me. It was a really good point. I believe it was actually Jacob Israel when I were talking recently. It's also interesting that a lot of these events happen around where people are being entertained. You know, movie theaters, dance clubs. Now it's outdoor festivals. That's a part of the psyop as well. You know, it's fear. It's also just pushing fear. You know. All right, so let's see here. Oh, thanks, Mia, for sharing my website. I'm gonna scroll down here and see because I'm rambling again, and my chat just slowed down for a second. By Grace in here. Is that you? Oh, hey, Saved by Grace. Hi. Yeah, and then see the other side of that is exactly it's they're trying to take away the guns, and then there's also now they can whenever there is the real events and people really do get hurt and they can absolutely prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, then they can come after all the people on YouTube saying it's a hoax, no one got hurt. That's why I think we got to be smart about this, the way we approach it, the way we tackle these subjects. Sandy Hook being one of the most famous hoaxes out there. I don't think they've done a lot of those since. I mean, there's some that mixed in here and there, but Sandy Hook was just like one of the biggest. And there's people who are really getting hit in a way, and their websites are being attacked because of still covering that subject. That's a crazy one. I'm going to scroll down a bit here and see what else we got. Okay. I just saw someone write a message to me. Let's see what we got here. Is all rights reserved. This is from Iona 1. Israel is the synagogue of Satan, and they use Mossad, Yeshiva, MK Ultra super soldier agents, Jesuits, Mason puppets to do wet works. Let's see what else we got here. Saved by Grace says, my husband doesn't believe in any conspiracy theories. It's difficult. It is, I know. Hang in there. It's tough trying to wake up the ones you love, The whole Confucius thing, when you're trying to teach someone something, give them a half a glass of water and walk away. Come back to you. When they come back, give them another half, walk away. Give them little bits, little increments some of these people need to finally get there. Know what I mean? I'm still scrolling down here. Natal, how are you? She says, oh, thanks, Jenny. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Keaton Johnson, how are you? Hey, thanks, man. I won't. He says, don't let the trolls discourage you. I won't. I think I've blocked most of them over the years. I seriously have like hundreds of people I've blocked. Hundreds. Indecent Exposure says, I was a lot of work, but my husband came around to waking up for you. Heidi, Mighty Mongoose. I haven't seen you in a while either. Nice to see you. Let's see, scrolling on down here some. Let's see what else we got. Out and chat for a second. I'm feeling like just checking out the chat. If you guys have questions, anything you want to talk about, whatever, I'm just kind of going through and checking it out. I'll get back to another monster story here in a second. Scrolling down with KJ, they call it. Anonymous individual says no one trusts the mainstream media anymore. Exactly. Exactly. Good thing. Good thing. Still scrolling down here. Scrolling with KJ. All right, I'm going to get back to a story again here. Another monster story. Chubs. Yeah, I'll have to put Chubs in a video sometime. I'm not sure how I'll do it or what reason. But there was a time in Costa Rica that I thought about the videos, or maybe I talked about a news story of the day, and it would have that window on there. Like I could just in the main screen, I'd have the news story talking about it. But in the bottom screen, where a lot of times people will put themselves, like you'll see the little box in the lower right hand corner of the person talking to you, I'd have Chubbs there wearing a head, or I'd have a rascal down there wearing a headset. For some reason, I went through a mode where I thought that might be funny, but then, you got to be careful with stuff like that too. I like, because the message, the information I put out to me is very serious. I try to do it easier to digest, I guess you could say, but I don't ever want to get like too kooky and comical with this stuff either, because it can take away from the seriousness of the message. You know what I mean? But anyway, so good thing I didn't do that, I guess. Let's see what else we got here. And Tina, good to see you. All right, let's go ahead and do another monster story. How's that? Let me jump over here and see what we got, and I will be just a second. Let me bring that down. I'm going to bring this window up, and let's see what the next one is. Dodge this Marco Polo for which is a really good one, actually. This one is interesting. I hadn't fully got into this one yet, but I thought it might be kind of fun. And this one's called Mysterious Devil's Footprints Appearing Around the World. So let's give this one a second to pop up on the screen. Here it is. Drink real quick of that coffee. 1 second. Okay. So here we go. It says the world of cryptozoology is no stranger to odd footprints found throughout the world, coming in a wide variety of sizes and with their own peculiarities. These tracks often leave bewilderment, bafflement, and spur on question as to their origins and what sort of creature could have made them. The answers of what caused them are not always completely clear, but they invariably are cause for much debate and speculation. And among these anomalous prints are those that are from far-flung destinations yet seem to share some similar traits, and they all seem to have the curvature of a hoofed creature that has left its footprints behind, and which have caused debate as to whether or not they are caused by some weird creature, some kind of a hoax, or just a curious coincidence. Far the most well-known and widely circulated stories of such mysterious footprints is that of the original devil's footprints, also called the devil's hoof marks, in the area of East and South Devon in England. On the morning of February 8th, 1855, the area was blanketed with snow from the night before, and it seemed as if everything was frosted and white. Residents were surprised to find a long track of strange, hoof-like prints that seemed as if they must have been freshly made, and the individual prints reportedly measured around 4 inches long and 3 inches wide, and seemed to have been made in a nearly perfect single-file line, with each print spaced between 8 to 16 inches from each other. They looked to be cloven and from something bipedal, in short, like tracks from nothing the locals had ever seen, and they meandered throughout the snow for between 60 to 100 miles. Depending on the report, some reports mention that the prints actually seem to have been melted or scorched into the snow as if from some intense heat. And they actually have on here drawings of these things from 1855. Still scrolling down. As odd as all this was, what made it even stranger was the bizarre route that these prints took, going right up over walls, along narrow fencing, over house roofs, even through barns and haystacks, gardens and courtyards, across frozen lakes and fields, and spookily enough, even often seeming to come right into people's front doors, as if whatever had made them had been intently investigating these homes. Oddly, in some cases, it seemed as if these prints had entered and exited pipes that were only around 4 inches in diameter, passed through locked gates, or seemed to wander straight up trees, as well as in totally enclosed or locked off areas and other improbable places. The weird story took off and was widely publicized in newspapers of the time. The people of the area were spooked, to say the least, and began to strongly believe that these were not the tracks of any normal animal, but rather those of the devil himself. Many were afraid to leave their homes at night, terrified that the devil was still out there roaming about and that he could sniff out their sins. More rational explanations have encompassed everything from hoaxers or the distorted tracks of mice, birds, rabbits, badgers, ponies, horses, kangaroo. It's funny because it's still today, like even with uh, crop circles. A lot of these crop circles are legit, you know, but they always run these specials showing how people, try to fake them. And it's with anything. I mean, this world doesn't want the supernatural or paranormal explanation to anything. I mean, the mass, right? They typically don't want that. I think mainly because it forces you to think outside of this reality. Suddenly you're like, oh crap. And if you don't believe in God and all that, you're like, oh boy. And it freaks people out. So, it's people telling themselves they're being rational and logical when they're just refusing. Their thinking is one dimensional, right? So we see this even back then. We'll throw out everything. Oh, it was ponies, it was badgers, it was horses, it was probably a kangaroo. It's just anything they can to cover up the truth of these strange stories. Something to think about. Let's see, kangaroos and other things they even said could be, and here's more of the excuses of what it was. Rainbows falling, not rainbows, raindrops falling, creating the depressions, and even the craziest idea that a weather balloon had drifted down and drug along the ground. But none of these fully explain the mystery and the devil's footprints of Devon, because they have largely remained an enduring mystery for years. Interestingly, on March 5th, 2009, it seems that there is a very similar phenomenon reported from precisely the same area. In this case, a resident named Jill Wade of Woolsey, North Devon, claimed to have found a strange line of pointed cloven hoof-like footprints in freshly fallen snow in her backyard. Wade reported that the tracks were 5 inches long with a stride of between 11 and 17 inches and stretched on for 60 to 70 feet across the garden in an arch-like shape, starting at her window and going out to the other side of the yard where they disappeared. The bizarre tracks were examined by a biologist with the Center of Fortean Zoology, named as Graham Inglis, who noticed that there's striking similarity to the devil's footprints images of 1855 from the same vicinity. They could not find an easy answer to what actually made these. So, however, Inglis did have reservations about jumping straight to paranormal explanations. He said of the tracks, "This is certainly a first for me. The footprints are peculiar. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know if they're the devil's. I don't believe so. I don't believe the horned one has been in Woolsey. Personally, I think it belongs to a rabbit, maybe." And that was his explanation. But while the devil's footprints of Devon are rather well known, more obscure cases phenomenon have come in from various places around the world. One such account, I got to take a drink. Hold on one second. All right. One such account comes to us from May of 1840 on the remote Kerguelen Islands of the southern Indian Ocean. These windswept, rocky swaths of treeless frozen land are surrounded by mercilessly rough gray waters and are located more than 3,300 kilometers from the nearest traces of civilization. Madagascar Island, making them one of the most isolated places on Earth, and earning the islands their nickname, the Desolation Islands. The only plant life to be found here in this chilly, uninhabitable domain are some lichens, mosses, and grasses, and the only animal life here are a few species of insects, sills, and some seabirds and penguins, as well as feral rabbits, cats, and sheep that have been introduced by passing ships. In 1840, Captain Sir James Ross found himself on these shores as part of an expedition to catalog the plant and animal life of the island. The island was described by him as being mostly barren, lifeless wasteland of sparse lichens and moss with no land animals seen at all. Indeed, at the time, there were no introduced animals present on the island, and the only creatures to be found there were insects, seabirds, and seals along the coast. It was for this reason that the discovery would all be that more bizarre. One small detachment led by Lieutenant Byrd came across a rather odd sight as they went about searching this inhospitable, snow-swept land for any signs of life. There in the freshly fallen snow was a line of horseshoe-shaped, hoof-like tracks measuring 3 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, which meandered throughout the snow for a while before disappearing in a rocky area without snow. Since the island had proven to be devoid of any large land animals and the expedition had no horses or ponies, it was baffling as to what could have possibly made the prints. In the end, Lieutenant Byrd speculated it was a horse or a pony or a donkey. Maybe it was left on the island by a previous expedition. He wasn't sure. So there's that. Anyway, there's a few more examples of these devil's footprints. Here's one from There was an unexplained set of devil's footprints found in 1945 near Everberg, Belgium. On January 10th of that year, a curious set of bizarre prints was found etched into the snow on a hill behind a place called Chateau de Morveau. The hoof-like prints measured 2.5 inches long by 1.5 inches wide and were composed of a series of a pair, only two, of two prints 9 inches apart that then formed a perfect single-file line of tracks spaced 12 to 15 inches apart, as if whatever had made them had been hopping along. The tracks wandered for several miles across the hillside, forest fields, and a stream, and strangely, they went right over some deep snowdrifts. Yet there was no sign of an animal's body sinking within the snow, only those odd footprints perched atop the frozen white. Locals in the area had never seen anything like it, and one man who investigated the prints, Mr. Eric Frank Russell, specifically said that they were very reminiscent of the devil's footprints of Devon in 1855. They still don't know exactly what they were. Interesting. I think it's interesting. I want to take a break now and come back to the chat. That concludes mysterious devil's footprints appear around the world. Shut a couple of these down. I got a lot of windows open here. I'm going to come back to the chat there in a second and just talk. We've been going about 2 hours, so I think I'm probably going to go ahead and start wrapping this up a little bit. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours. I still have a lot of stories, and I'll be doing more shows, and we'll cover more subjects as well. But, I wanted to do one today and just talk about some monsters, diverting into a lot of other topics, which is fine. So give me uno momento, and we'll just kind of talk a little bit before we go and see how that goes for a little bit, okay? Just a second. I'm trying to shut down some of these windows here. Go. So once again, I hope you're well. Hope you had a good afternoon here with us. I'm still going to chat for a bit. I'm not done yet. Just give me a second. I got to close a bunch of windows down here real quick. That's all. Still going through that. Then I'll jump over to the chat for a little bit. Thanks for waiting. All right, cool. That's good. Now let's go here to the chat for a sec, see what's up. Back. I put my email in my comments. It's the scariest movie ever. My email. And down and answer a few things before we go and just talk for a second. Kang, good to see you. Kang's here. Negan, thanks. Negan loves Lucille. All out work coming, man. There are still a few shows I watch. I get the discernment. I see things in these. That's where a lot of my videos come from. But peak at heart, so I do watch some of these things. Bug, hi, Deedlebug. Nice to see you. Eyes God says, KJ, you're hungry and dehydrated. Let's see. All right, guys, I guess I'll go ahead and start wrapping this up, man. Thanks again. Like I said, this is just one other out of a series of the Catching Up with KJ. I know we can cover a lot of different types of subjects, and oftentimes I do cover a lot of different subjects, not in the videos, but even here on the shows. More shows to come. Again, thanks for your support out there, guys. It means the world. I appreciate you. YouTube's changed. All that stuff's changed. Even just sharing and liking and praying, your prayers are always super welcome as well and needed, right? Let's see here. My windows are acting up a little bit on the computer. Sorry about that. Just give me a sec. All right, let's do this. And I'm still here for a little bit. shut everything down, and my computer's slowing down a little bit. And so just give me a second. Things running real slow. So anyway, man, like I said, thanks again. I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out today. I hope you enjoyed talking a little bit about monsters. We'll do some more kind of, covering some of these kind of stranger topics. It's a fun time to kind of get into it. So we'll do that and jump back to the chat here. Fine, I got everything shut down now. It's good. Chat once again and just see what's up. Hi guys, a lot of people just coming in now too. Water. I am a little dehydrated. I've been drinking coffee all morning here. Still looking. All right, man, I guess I'll go ahead and shut her down. Guys, I'll do more of these. Like I said, I appreciate you. I got more videos to come, a lot of stuff to show. And crazy times we're in, as much as I probably should. I don't know. But, this isn't to turn off those of you that, but I have to put it out there. But, guys, again, it's just, you see the work I do, other people out there. We're really showing you what time it is, what's going on. No date setting. I live my life day by day. I hope you do too. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your time with your friends, your family, and shed light in this world, share the gospel, everything else like that. But, if you haven't accepted Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, look into this, pray about it, get to know God. If you don't know God, if you're scared of all this stuff we talk about, not just monster type, I'm talking all the real world stuff happening. If it freaks you out, you don't know what to do, you can find peace in Christ. You can find peace in a personal relationship with our Heavenly Father, So I'll leave you with that. Thanks again, guys. Take it easy, and we'll do it later, okay? Have a great afternoon and a great week.